When I was very early in my freelance career, I was 18. I was also very young, so very early to my career and very young. I did not celebrate or share a single one of the wins that I was making. And a lot of that came from the fear of the way others perceived me, being young and doing my own thing and finding success in it. I was almost embarrassed by that. And I wholeheartedly agree to this day that being of that mindset, I limited myself a lot.
You were 18 when you started. And I think a lot of people listening to this either want to start their own thing. Maybe they want to do something that's a little bit against the grain or not super normalized in society, especially if you want to start your own business or freelancing, even like really coming out and saying that you're doing something and sharing your wins can be very intimidating. I talked about how getting over that fear is intentionally placing yourself in situations where you'll feel it to get over it.
Yeah.
And if you want to learn a little bit more about what I said, go to the last episode.
Yeah.
Go to the first episode.
I think everything that we said in that episode was perfect. I think how it relates and ties back to your success and being able to celebrate your success is celebrate your success when you don't want to.
100%.
That's really what it is. Because when I was experiencing that resistance to celebrate my wins when I was much younger, a lot of it was around, oh, people are going to perceive me as not knowing what I'm doing because sure, I'm sharing my success, but are they going to believe me because I'm 18? Now, when I am reaching certain goals or I'm making these small wins, when that feeling comes up of, oh, I don't know if that's big enough, I see it as resistance. And then I'm like, oh, that's okay, going on a dessert run, you know? Like,
yeah, that's your win.
Yeah,
that's a sign. So when you feel that resistance to celebrating something, that is a key indicator.
Yeah.
I actually need to do something nice for myself today.
Yeah.
I love that. Welcome to Untitled,
a podcast and educational brand where the nostalgia of higher education meets the sharp edge of a corporate boardroom.
I'm Sophie.
And I'm Alex.
And together we deliver no BS insights for ambitious freelancers, corporate climbers, multi-hyphenates, and business owners.
By challenging the limits of a single title, we're here to empower you to redefine success.
And make your work work for you.
Class is in session. Let's go.
Lesson number 1. When you never stop to recognize progress, it will start to feel like you're not making any. I have an example here. Elon Musk. You either love him or you hate him, but his drive for success is undeniable. He has built multiple billion-dollar companies, and he's admitted actually in interviews that even after major breakthroughs that his team has made, he doesn't pause before moving on to the next challenge. At one point, he even said, and I quote, "I don't ever really stop to think about the things we've accomplished. It's like the future matters so much more than the past." This mindset has clearly led to that exhaustion, that burnout, and this overwhelming pressure that he's constantly placing on himself. And we know this because he's also spoken about his own physical struggles with stress, like sleeping in the office, constantly feeling like there's always more to do and placing that pressure on himself. Isn't the point to enjoy your journey?
I also think it's important to note that this trickles down. I saw maybe a year ago, there was a lot of press around the staff at Tesla really going through the same struggles that you just mentioned Elon was directly. Mm-hmm. And people were sleeping in their offices. I mean, and it was a press nightmare. And it just goes to show that how you lead is then how the people that are looking up to you follow.
Lesson number 2, celebration isn't just about the win. It's about reinforcing the habits that got you there. It's so easy to forget progress when you don't actively document it.
I came from a full-time role and I was going back to freelancing. And in my corporate role, I realized very quickly that time goes by like this.
Crazy.
Time flies. And sometimes when you're so focused on the doing, you forget everything that you did. I mean, that happens to me every day.
Yeah.
And essentially I was going back to like redo my resume and I'm like, what am I putting on this? And it was because I had not tracked my wins or the impact that I made in an accessible way to me in the future. And so really what you're doing here is you are giving your future self a little leg up. Just do her a favor, please, and keep track. So a way that I personally like to do this, and I think it's really, really smart, I saw it online, is to create a wins form. I personally like Typeform. You could use a Google form.
Love Typeform.
But essentially the purpose of this is to just make it so easy for you to track your impact or what you're doing on a weekly basis. So I recommend doing it weekly. If you can do it monthly or bi-weekly, that's better than not doing it at all. I'm going to explain how you do this. So you're going to set up a Google form and you are going to have different questions within that Google form. The personal questions I include in it, and you can change these depending on whether you're in a corporate role or you're a freelancer. I think they would change slightly. But the first question you're going to ask is your biggest win of the week. You're going to write there what your biggest win of the week is. If it was something super small, like had a really positive conversation with X, maybe it's a client, maybe it's your manager. It doesn't matter if you think that win is small. You're still putting it in there. You're not like, oh, nothing significant. No,
there is something.
You're forced to do it.
There is something.
It's the practice of doing it. It goes back to that. You are not the judge of whether the win was small or large.
I love that.
Put it in the form field. Your second question can be projects you made progress on. So if you have current projects within your role or you're a freelancer and you're wrapping up projects or project-based things, you are going to put the projects that you made progress on. Third question, who you have collaborated with and how. This is so important from a relationship standpoint. I talk to people every single day, and sometimes I forget, oh, that person is a really good resource for X. So this field is really to make sure that you're tracking also your success and wins within relationship building. The fourth one is positive feedback you received. This is my personal favorite. You're going to put any positive feedback that you received in that week. We're also going to talk about something further in the episode that I want to mention, but I don't want to go like super into it right now, which is a brag folder. This is slightly different from the brag folder because you are actually communicating the positive feedback you received. You're not just
collecting it.
Right. So it's really how you are synthesizing that positive feedback that you received. Another one is what you did outside of your job description. This is great for corporate roles.
This is so good.
This is so important.
You need to be collecting this information.
Yeah.
Even if you're not in corporate roles and you are a freelance marketing person.
What's out of scope?
What exactly?
That's
what are you doing that's out of scope?
Yes. And I think this just helps you so much evaluate everything.
Right.
I mean, in a corporate role, you can go back at the end of the month and say, oh my gosh, this is all of the stuff that I did that was overflow. And same if you're a freelancer. So that's a really, really critical one. And then what new skills, goes back to upskilling and reskilling. You are going to specify what new skills or relationships that you worked on or built in that week. And I love this because your responses are then automatically, if you set it up properly, your responses are automatically dumped into a spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
That spreadsheet is gold because then in any of these conversations that you're having, whether you're in an interview, whether you're going for a pay raise, I mean, Sophie's like the master of that. You have data to back up what you're saying.
And this is not something that you need to spend hours on.
No.
This is once a week.
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Lesson number 3, gratitude fuels momentum. When you appreciate how far you've come, you gain the energy to keep going. There's real research and studies that have been proven to show that gratitude actually activates the brain's reward system, specifically the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, which is the front bottom part of your frontal lobe. This not only gives you feelings of pleasure, but it also reinforces behavior that is associated with perseverance and excitement to attain even larger goals.
I mean, you just used some really big words. And I want you to explain a little bit more about how that pathway works.
It means that when you take a moment of gratitude, celebrating even the smallest of wins, you are actively rewiring your brain to keep doing that, to keep going, keep repeating the things that made you that win. Your brain is recognizing success as something that's worth repeating, right?
Yeah.
So it transforms these past wins that you're celebrating into energy to create future ones.
Yeah, I mean, it really is like a reinforcement almost, because what you're celebrating doesn't necessarily have to be your perfect version of what success looks like or what checking off the goal looks like. It's more so that you're reinforcing to your mind, oh, these are steps that I'm taking to this bigger goal, and taking those steps is still successful.
Yes. And you're associating that effort with reward.
Yeah.
So it's making you much more likely to push forward and go to the next goal and like set even bigger goals. And most importantly, you're staying excited about your journey. And that is so important. Momentum and celebrating your wins, momentum all in all is not about discipline. Discipline is important, but this is about creating a cycle where progress feels rewarding enough to continue to keep going.
Speaking of gratitude for yourself, something that also feels really good is when other people express gratitude for you and your work. So I want to talk about brag folder now, because this is one of my favorite things.
I stole this from Alex and I'm obsessed.
It's the best thing ever. And if you ever need a little boost of confidence,
a little pick me up, a little external validation.
You are going to find your brag folder. So what is a brag folder? A brag folder, in essence, is just a designated space for you to collect all your wins, positive feedback, and proof of the impact that you have made. And mine looks like a whole lot of screenshots.
A whole lot of text screenshots.
Yeah. So if yours does too, amazing. But your brag folder could also be an email folder in Gmail. If you get a lot of your positive feedback through email. It could also be a Google Drive folder. For me, it's literally a photo album. So it can also be really, really simple. And what the brag folder does is it really just helps, again, for you to boost your confidence.
Yes, it's a confidence booster, but you can actually use this as a resource.
Yeah, I think that a brag folder just makes accessing hard facts very easy, because it's a little bit different from the form, whereas you're filling that out with your perception.
But you can use your brag folder to help you fill out your weekly wins form.
Yeah.
You know, if you remember putting a bunch of stuff in your brag folder this week, when you're filling out your weekly wins form, use that as a resource. Or when you're in job interviews, go to your brag folder and see where you've really made an impact. It's, yes, confidence building, but it's also a great resource for you to have to know the level of impact that you've made throughout your organization or throughout your business.
How do we set one up? So like I said, I think picking where you set up your brag folder really depends on where you receive the most feedback, because a lot of what's in your brag folder should be people's feedback about you and your work. And so this could be an email folder, it could be an album. But I think just saving this positively associated information somewhere that's central is really helpful.
Lesson number 4. A life spent achieving without celebrating is just high functioning dissatisfaction. You're not too busy to acknowledge progress. You're conditioning yourself to believe that happiness and fulfillment is always out of reach. celebrating small wins doesn't mean you need to have this huge crazy party or pop champagne every single time you check something off the list. Make it simple.
Building a habit of celebrating your success is really important. So the best way to do that is to make it simple, and a small moment where you can recognize and then keep going, I think is probably the most approachable thing to do, especially if you're not used to celebrating your wins. Like, we need to make this so approachable that it's not so scary for you to do it. And I think an easy way to do that is to set a go-to reward. What is your go-to reward? And you can always just fall back on that go-to reward. For me, I love a little dessert run. I mean, I don't know where all the frozen yogurt shops went, but
it's insane.
But like, that's my personal favorite thing to do, even though I have to drive 25 minutes to get a frozen yogurt now.
I just saw someone talking about this.
I'm just confused. Like, where did they all go?
I don't know. Where do you go get your frozen yogurt?
I really like Orange Leaf a lot, but
Orange
like
Leaf, never even heard of it.
But like Red Mango is like the only thing I can find.
I know, Red Mango is jail.
Yeah.
Like, we can't do that.
It's too healthy for frozen yogurt, in my opinion. But
I'm been an ice cream girl now.
No, I can't.
Jenny's ice cream? You don't like Jenny's ice cream?
No.
Alex is a little bit unwell. This is a new fact I've learned about her.
I don't like ice cream, really.
This is a major red flag.
I'm like,
you don't like ice cream?
No, not really. Little dessert run is like one of my favorite things. Also, a solo coffee date. Love a solo coffee date. The point that I'm trying to make is you can make this so easy and second nature.
Mm-hmm. Alex and I both work so much, and starting this podcast has been a really big challenge for us. So every time we even finish recording an episode, that's a big win for us.
Yeah.
That's a big win for us.
It's giant.
We've made this, I would say, ritual now, where every time we're finished at the studio, we go share a meal together. And that's our version of celebrating. And, you know, we're not over here buying plane tickets and doing a bunch of crazy stuff, which,
I mean, we are buying. You can't say that because we are buying plane tickets.
We are buying plane ticket.
We are not buying Chanel bags every time we do something.
We're not doing anything absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But it's the simple act that we are taking a moment to acknowledge what we did that keeps us going. And it's like shifting your mindset from what's next to, damn, we just did that.
Yeah.
And that matters.
Yeah, it does matter. And it's also the shift from feeling undeserving and operating in the energy of being undeserving of your win to being deserving.
And grateful.
Yeah, we're deserving.
And that immediately puts you in a space of gratitude.
Yeah.
And gratitude brings abundance, okay?
Yeah.
These moments you take to recognize your progress are not just about celebrating. They're really about sustaining your drive. And that's the point I'm really trying to make, even if it's a simple celebration.
Yeah.
And when you don't, your success will start to feel empty almost. Like, no matter how much you achieve, it will never feel like enough. So do not wait for some massive milestone to give yourself permission to feel proud.
Lesson number 5 is to use the STAR method to articulate your wins in an impactful way. What is the STAR method? The STAR method stands for situation, task, action, and result. And this is really just a simple framework to clearly explain your wins in any situation. I started using it when I first landed my first full-time role. I was a social media manager at a startup, and my manager was horrific.
No.
I knew immediately that I was going to either need to transition out of my role or she was going to have to go. And she did end up going, but I was prepared for either situation. And the way that I prepared for that, ultimately for either way, this prepared me for either situation. And it was by making sure that I had tracked and was able to articulate my wins in a really effective way. So I researched ways to effectively show the contributions that I had made, and I used the STAR method. So I kept track of everything from content creation to other things outside of my role that I was doing. And I was really specific and I used numbers. I would like to highlight that.
That's so important.
Please use some damn numbers. I actually wanted to ask you this, side tangent. Sophie's hiring right now. When you started getting applications, did you read any resumes without numbers on them?
Oh, I did, Alex.
Okay.
And
I have to take this back. Can I please take this back?
Yes, I thought about you immediately.
When Sophie and I were talking about using numbers for impact, I had told her that I received a resume recently that had no numbers on it.
And I was like, that's ridiculous.
Sophie's like, that's a lie.
I didn't say that's a lie.
She did not believe me that somebody sent me a resume with no numbers, and I just had to ask you.
Because I thought it was like common knowledge, so obvious. Your resume shouldn't be explaining what you did. It's showing the impact that you had.
We're saying this with so much kindness because ultimately we want you to succeed. We want you to get the roles that you are applying for, and we want you to land the clients that you're pitching.
Right. I had a girl send me screenshots. Like, she has this portfolio and it shows all of her creative that she's done. And then also there's a slide on KPIs from the content she's created. Gosh. And it's like,
talk dirty to me.
Right. I'm like, yes, I want to talk to you immediately. When I saw her portfolio, I was like, we're hopping on the phone right now. And
she sounded like that. Sophie sounded like that.
No, I was like, oh my gosh, I love your portfolio. Like, let's get on a call. And we had a call. She's like the sweetest, cutest girl ever. Anyway, we'll figure it out.
No, it's so important. And when you don't include numbers, I'm sure that you have numbers. You just didn't include them. And so then what that flags is like, you don't know how to track impact to me.
That tells you.
It tells me immediately that you really struggle with tracking impact. So I tracked everything. And when my manager was eventually fired, I proactively reached out to the CEO of the startup that I was at. I was 18. I was like, you know what's in my view? Creative director.
She knew what she wanted.
I was going from like first full-time role at a startup to creative director really fast.
I'm really proud of you.
But it's fine. So reached out to the CEO and I was like, I'm ready to step up into a bigger role. Creative director, not sure if that made sense, but I had numbers behind me. And so because I used the STAR method, I was able to clearly show the impact that I had made and how my skills aligned with what the company's needs were moving forward. Ultimately, because I had been using the STAR method, I was able to secure a 12% increase in my salary. When they shared that I was getting the raise, I had been at the startup for less than a year. And if you are familiar with raises, 12% is a lot.
It is a lot.
It's a lot. And so when they came to the conversation and told me, these are your new roles and responsibilities, they literally said, don't tell anyone that we're giving you this raise because we're not giving everybody this raise. And
I don't like that.
I don't like it either. I don't like it either. That's why tracking your wins is so important, because I don't think my coworkers were making any less impact than me.
100%.
They just weren't tracking it and they weren't able to show that. And I was so confidently tracking and showing everything that I had done that ultimately someone can't look at that from a leadership position if they're a good leader and not reward you for that.
Exactly. You have to advocate for yourself, and advocating for yourself requires you to take the time to track your wins.
Okay, so how do we use STAR? STAR stands for, again, situation, task, action, and result. Situation, the question is, what was the challenge? So, for example, I was managing social at a startup. I had very limited design resources at the time, and I had a really challenging manager. That was my situation. Task, what was my role? My role was really blurry. I was wearing lots of hats. I was handling the social media, the paid ads, which I had zero experience in, And I was also managing influencer communications and creator relationships for the startup. The action, what was I specifically doing outside of my job responsibilities? I was developing a marketing strategy, designing high-performing ad creatives. Again, very important at this point for you to use numbers. And I was also handling the influencer comms. The result of all of that, what was the impact? Boosted engagement by X, increased influencer collaborations by X. I would really stress in the results section of using STAR that you associate your impact to revenue every single time.
Sometimes you might not have that data.
I think you need to have that data.
Okay.
If you're in a small organization, even a mid-sized organization, you're not going to be handed that information.
No, exactly.
You are going to have to go seek it out.
Yeah.
So you're very right. It's not always going to be readily accessible to you, but I think from an organization standpoint, if you don't understand the impact your work directly made on revenue, it's going to be very hard to move through your career.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's a hot take, but
it's not a hot take. It's just challenging to go get it.
It is. And people are going to tell you no as well.
Exactly.
And if people are telling you no, you got to move. I'm sorry.
That's a really great point. And I want you guys to really think about each part of the STAR method. The questions that followed each part are questions you need to ask yourself. So situation, what was your challenge? Task, what was your role? Action, what did you specifically do? Result, what was the impact of your work? So when you're filling out STAR, just like Alex said with her own examples, ask yourself those questions, and that's really going to help you have just a real structure to follow. We know it can feel weird or even maybe a little bit cringy to acknowledge your own progress out loud, but if you take anything away from this episode, let it be this. Noticing what's working is part of the work.
And if you're not used to doing that, you're not alone. Avoiding your own growth doesn't make you humble. It just makes it harder to trust yourself.
So this week, instead of rushing into what's immediately next, we're inviting you to take inventory, not of your to-do list, but of your effort, your energy, and your impact.
And to help, we made a free homework resource that's linked in the notes. You'll find a few quick questions to check your understanding, a reflection using the STAR method, and a challenge that walks you through how to write and actually own one of your wins.
There's also space to build your own celebration ritual, which sounds a little cheesy, but really giving yourself a moment to mark a win trains your brain to keep going.
We'll see you in class next week, but for now, sit with the fact that you've done more than enough and maybe finally give yourself some credit.